Hello my friends, this is your brother Hampton from Hybrid Calisthenics. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Hampton, where I sit down and share some thoughts with you over a cup of coffee. It feels like it's been a while. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these. I know I did one last week with the chirp wheel and the unsponsored review, which I liked doing and I got a pretty good response from, so I'm probably going to do multiple ones of unsponsored reviews with different products. I haven't really decided yet. And the week before that was the podcast with Ben Patrick, the knees over toes guy, which I learned a lot and I really enjoyed. But it feels like it's been a while since I did a solo Coffee with Hampton where I sit down and just chat with you. So I'm really excited to do this and I'm happy to be back. Thank you for watching. This is actually my second time filming this video. I tried to do this video on Wednesday. I got this idea and I was inspired to do it and I got really excited. But I was probably too inspired and too excited because as I turned on the camera and I started talking, even before I watched all the footage while editing it, I was thinking, as I was saying it, this might be a little bit too disjointed. I was trying to get out too many ideas at once. And it is an important idea, I think. It is something I want to share. So I try to organize it a little bit more in this notebook. And here goes, take two. And it's interesting because on Wednesday, I was high energy, I was wired, I was inspired and excited to do things all day, every day. And while today, when I'm doing this later on in the week, while I'm not tired, I am probably more of a relaxed energy. I'm probably a little bit more mellow today, which is probably more apropos for the topic at hand. Because I was thinking about things that have helped me in my life and things I can share for people if they're at that point in their journey. And I realized a lot of people can probably feel stuck. They feel stuck in their life. This isn't necessarily in fitness. Like the title is probably going to be something like thoughts on inspiration and motivation. And people ask me about fitness motivation and I have videos on that. But this is really more about what you want to do with your life. And it's really different for everyone. Some people want to be pastors, others want to be firemen, others want to be content creators, different things. But at some point in our life, hopefully we feel inspired, we feel the spark, this catalyst that serves the rest of our life when we decide this is what I want to do and we follow that path for the rest of our lives. But some people, possibly most people, end up on a path that they don't like, either temporarily or they chose a path that they thought they would like because they thought maybe perhaps they thought it would make their parents or their family happy, or they did it to impress their friends, or they wanted to make lots of money, or they just thought it was the right thing to do. You know, the stereotypical 9 to 5. 9 to 5 isn't necessarily bad, but nowadays it almost seems to have a negative connotation to be working a quote-unquote boring 9 to 5 job. Or some people may be doing that temporarily. You may be getting a job right out of college, right out of school, and you think, well, I have dreams, I have things I want to do. This is just a temporary thing. And it's different if you've been doing it for a few months or you've been doing it for a few years and you're thinking, come on, I'm waiting for things to take off. And I think the catalyst that drives us onto what we really want to do, when we realize that this is the step I need to take to get started on my goal, because this is what I want to do with my life. We have 70, 80, 90, 100, depending on how well you take care of yourself, around approximately 100 years to live, let's say that, 100 years to live, and we have a set time frame to where we can do the things that we want. So at some point, you might sit down and you'll think, well, it's time for my life to start. Or you might sit down and you'll think, it's time for my life to change, because there might be something about your life that you're not happy with and you think you could do better. Maybe at some point you thought it might make you happy, but at this point you want to change it. And by the way, this thought, this idea of changing or starting can happen at pretty much any point in your life. Some people realize this in their teens, if they're lucky. Other people, they don't really get started until their 50s or 60s. If you're alive and you're still going, you have this opportunity and you can make a change in your life. This video is really about finding that catalyst, that inspiration, that motivation to pursue the things you really want in your life. And I'll touch upon the discovery thereof, because a lot of people, again, arguably, perhaps most people don't know what they really want to do. They might think they do until they try it and they're like, this isn't really for me. And this video is just my thoughts, my ideas, and my experience on how you can get yourself to the state to allow yourself to have that spark that can fuel, hopefully, the rest of your life and your true passion. And this video especially goes out to people who do have big dreams, who do want to do more with their life but feel like they're operating under, perhaps way under their potential, and they do want to help people. But I know how this feels. At the end of an 8, 9, 10-hour shift, even those people with big dreams and strong willpower, sometimes they lack the creativity and the enthusiasm to pursue their passion when their body is really exhausted. You might have the mental fortitude to think after like a 17-hour shift, okay, it's time to think about my photography career, or think about my art, or think about my music. It's hard to feel creative during those times. Sometimes yes, but other times when your body is exhausted, you just don't have the inspiration and the motivation you need, the spark that can give you the ideas that can bring you into the life that you really want. If you're feeling stuck, here are some thoughts on how to get unstuck and feel inspired again. So there are 3 main things that I would do, that I would suggest, things that have personally helped me. You'll notice I like things in 3s, but one of them is something you can do every day. And another one, the second one, is something you can do throughout the week. You'll see what I mean. And the third thing is something you can do once a week. The first thing, which I recommend trying to do every day, is to give yourself some downtime and to allow yourself some time during the day, even 10, 20, 30 minutes, where you actively do nothing, or you do a mindless activity that doesn't stimulate your brain. Now, this is something that I first discovered when I was in college, when I was in school, because at that time I had more things going on. I had roommates. I spent a lot of time in class. This was before COVID and everything. So like every day, almost every day, I'd be going to class and I'd be talking with people. And when I had an essay due, when it was time to do an essay, and I was talking with my friends, my roommates, I'm like, well, okay, well, I had to focus on this. And I would sit down and I would think, I have no idea what to write. I have no idea what to write, especially if the essay was an application essay where it was asking me about myself, some questions about myself that I usually don't think about. And I would have to think about them before I wrote. And I would realize at that point, I would sit down, and while I realized I had nothing to say, and I would realize that, wow, I really don't do this very often, to where I sit down and just think. Because as soon as I wake up, my alarm goes off, it's time to go to class. I sit down, I'm scribbling down notes while listening to the professor. I'm talking with classmates. I'm talking with my friends while I eat lunch. And there's never really a time where I sit down and just think. And I found it very pleasant, but there was usually only about, don't follow my example on this. There was usually about like 10 minutes left until a due date. So I didn't really have the pleasure to sit down and think more. I had to think really quickly and then write down my essay and then send it in before the due date. But as I carried on into adult life, I found myself wanting to do this more and more often, because I realized I would regularly get better ideas this way. This is one of the reasons why I did a video on why I take a walk almost every morning, every day, and one of the reasons why I sit down and drink coffee by myself without any music, without talking to anybody sometimes. Because I realized that, at least for me, if my brain was always receiving information, even in a good way, even, hanging out with friends, talking with people, learning, listening to things, learning new things in a podcast or a textbook or something, I was still receiving information. And other than the time where I'm showering or when I'm sleeping, I'm not really giving my brain time to sit down and process that information. And at some point, it's always under load. It's always responsible for processing the information it's being given, the media that I watch, the stuff I listen to. And when I give myself some quiet time, I can process that. And when I relax my brain really, is when it allows itself to think of the ideas that I want. And I just kind of direct it. I don't really think that much about it. I just kind of relax, and sometimes I'll steer it towards, well, how can I accomplish this? In this case, for example, if I wanted to pursue an art career, I would think, well, I want to pursue an art career, and I would let my brain just kind of wander, and it would regularly think of good ideas during this time. Now, I've done other content about that, so I won't spend too much time talking about it here, but it is something that I find really important. But whenever I bring this up, and this is something I did not know until I started making content, until I started listening to my audience. So I really thrive on your feedback. So the comments the ideas that you give me are very important to me. Because someone told me, multiple people have told me that, Hampton, I like that idea, and I do feel stuck, and I want to feel inspired, and I want to listen to your advice, but I'm scared to be alone with my thoughts. I'm scared to think and not distract myself with other media, with other people, because I'm scared of where my mind might wander when I'm alone and I'm not feeding my brain with something. And this was something I had to think about. By the way, some of you might be listening to that and you might think, yeah, that's me, Hampton, I'm glad you brought it up. Others might be like, that doesn't make any sense. I understand how some people can feel that way. And it took me a while to process this. And I think that while this is, it is relatable. I understand some people have had some harsh things happen to them in their past. And I understand why they might want to distract themselves. And you may want to seek professional help about that. I definitely don't claim to be like the end all be all to that. But whatever means you seek, I recommend that you try to find some inner peace to where you can have the ability to be alone with your thoughts if possible. And I would put a priority on this, like whether through meditation, through reading, through counseling, or however you can do it, I would consider that a huge priority in your life because, like I said in a previous video, your mind is one of the few things in this world that truly belong to you. And I think it's something that's deeply healthy. And I think what I said was you owe it to yourself to allow yourself to be free in your own mind. This idea of not wanting to be alone because there are scary things inside your own mind, things that you are afraid of thinking, is understandable, and to a degree I relate to that and sympathize with it. But I have to say that I think it's a temporary solution at best, and resolving that whichever way you can is probably one of the best things you can do for your long-term health, period. But yes, obviously I know that is something that takes time. It can take months, possibly years, which is why I suggested the alternative of doing something mindless instead of just doing nothing. Because yes, there may be things inside you that scare you that you don't want to face, but either way you do need to do laundry, right? You do need to do the dishes and clean the house, things like that, right? When you do these things, when you get off work or in the morning, ideally when you're feeling a good amount of energy, when you do something mindless, you will realize that a lot of ideas will come to you at this time, and you can use this as kind of a planning stage for your life. And I routinely, like I've said before, get some of my best ideas this way. So that's something you can try every day. Again, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you like. The second thing I'll mention is something you can do throughout the week. I'm sure almost everyone, my thing fell again. I'm sure almost everyone realizes that not every day is the same. There are some days where you'll naturally feel a little bit more energetic, a little bit more inspired, maybe a little happier, and other days where you might just feel a little bit more down, a little bit slower, just a different vibe. Even if you're not feeling necessarily depressed or tired even, it's just a slower day. People usually associate that with rainier days, cloudier days, and happier days with sunnier days. But again, different people thrive on different things. And something that's very, very common, I was gonna say for adults, but I guess for teens and really some kids now too, is we know that we like and we get a lot of stuff done and we're happier on those happy days. And we think, I want to feel that way every day. I want to feel inspired and creative and happy and energetic and peppy and bubbly every day. Why not? Why not? I felt great the last time I felt that day. So the next time they're feeling tired or they wake up and they're just like, oh, I'm just not really feeling it. They want some kind of stimulant. People have different vices, different things to bring them back up to what they think will be that happy day and that happy state. A very common one. And I'm going to use this example because I'm holding something in my hand right now. This is coffee. It's almost always black coffee in here. It's never empty. I'm never just holding it as a prop. But yes, coffee is probably the most common stimulant that people gravitate towards when they're having a slower day and they want to have a peppier, happier, more energetic day. A lot of people drink it in the morning so they can have energy for the rest of their day. I've talked about this before. As much as I love coffee, it doesn't give you much energy. Things like coffee and caffeine don't really give you very much energy usually. They are a stimulant, so they use the energy you already have. Coffee also has properties of making you less sensitive to your exhaustion, kind of like a painkiller to your exhaustion. But the actual energy that you're getting from coffee is not that much. We get most of our energy in the form of calories and our nutrition through food and drink. But yes, when we imbibe stimulants like coffee, we stimulate our body to use the energy that it already has, sometimes stored as a form of reserve. Sometimes it's stored for emergency purposes in case we encounter a bear or something, because bears can sometimes be very, very dangerous. And this feels great. This can feel really nice when we drink coffee and we have that buzz or that high in some ways, and we feel really good, especially the first few times we try it. But I'm sure a lot of you, if you've done this, have realized that if you try to do this every day, you need more and more. The first time you had coffee, you probably were buzzing the whole day. Maybe you couldn't sleep. The next time you had it, time after that, years and years, you start realizing you need a cup of coffee in the morning just to feel normal. Then it's 2 cups, then it's 3 cups. And then for some people, they're drinking like 3 or 4 pots a day, sometimes in the morning, just to get going because they're so used to it and they need that much just to get to that point, just to feel normal because they're so used to caffeine. My argument for that is if you're going to need that many stimulants just to feel normal, why not scale back to the point to where you don't need all of that just to feel normal? Why not feel normal without it, and then you can use it to stimulate yourself on certain days, scheduled days, or perhaps on special occasions. So it's ironic that in our pursuit to always feel that energy boost every day, we end up feeling it no days. Because we're always chasing that high, we never get to that high. We're in the medium, the low medium. This is something I've talked about with my friends when I tell them that, oh yes, I love coffee. I have a show called Coffee with Hampton. Sometimes their question is, oh, how much do you drink? And I say, oh, I drink a cup every other day. And some of them go, well, you don't love coffee like I love coffee. I drink coffee like 8 or 9 cups a day, sometimes more. And I think, wow, that's nice. That's great if that's what you want to do. But do you like coffee? Do you love coffee? Or are you just dependent on it? Have you become addicted to it? So some people say they love coffee, but I think it's more like they're in an abusive relationship with coffee and it's time to give coffee some breathing room. So if that makes total sense to you, you're probably really smart because most of you are probably thoroughly confused and thinking, Hampton, what are you talking about? Something about coffee? What is your point? My recommendation is that throughout the week, you are going to have some days where you are a little bit slower, a little bit more tired, a little bit less inspired, a little bit less motivated. And my recommendation is, if at all possible, just to allow yourself to have those days. I know it can be scary for some people, especially if you're trying this. But when you allow yourself to have that day where it's just a little bit more down, you may still have to work, but when you come home, if at all possible, take a nap, take it easy. If you are not really behind on something, just put it off to another day. Try to take it easy and take that as a day of rest. I know this can be harder for some of you who have to work on those days. And you say, Hampton, I can't take that day as a rest day. I have to work, I have to pay bills. And I get that. I've been there. I'm still there on some days. But on those days, I still recommend that you try to allow yourself to operate at a slower pace. If it's something that you can do routinely, if it's not something that requires a lot of mental energy, you can kind of go through the motions, I recommend you do so and try to back off. It doesn't have to be cold turkey, but I do recommend cutting back. I know it can be scary, especially if you're used to doing this, especially if it's in your routine to wake up and then go to Starbucks or go to a local coffee shop and order your signature drink and then go to work. I recommend ordering decaf or something else. Maybe you can try tea to something that can ease you into not relying on those stimulants, because it can seem scary when you're used to always feeling that high, when you're always trying to get to this baseline, and then suddenly you don't have the stimulants to keep you up and you drop pretty steeply, and that can be scary. I think it's okay. I think our energy is supposed to ebb and flow like the tide. I think our life is supposed to be cyclical in nature. We're supposed to have times of high energy, so we can have times of low energy, so we can have times of high energy, and so on and so forth. Just think of it as an extension of waking and sleeping. People seem to like being awake and doing stuff, but there's no reason to fear going to sleep. When you're feeling tired and feeling low energy, you don't feel like doing things, it's probably time to rest. Most of the things that our body does is a feature, not a bug. And when we feel tired and we allow ourselves to rest, we can usually come back stronger. But if we stay up all night, then we're usually tired the next day. I think it's the same thing. And the third and last thing I'll mention is something you can do once a week, and that is to find something that stimulates you and brings you pleasure and just give it up, give it a rest for a couple of days. Now, how you choose what to give up on that day or two during the week, I actually struggled to define a little bit. I actually called my fiance before this video because ever since I've known her, once a year for about 3 weeks to a month, she's given up social media. She just doesn't touch it. And I asked her, how would you define what it is that you chose to give up? And I settled on, like I said, something that stimulates you, gives you a dopamine rush, and gives you pleasure. And she defined it as giving up something that she didn't need and thought that she could probably stand to use or do less of. Because I hesitate to call it an addiction, right? Because between the two of us, I use social media a lot more than she does. I don't think anybody would consider her addicted to social media, but she still chose to give it up. And it's a little bit different because I do use social media for hybrid calisthenics. I do use it to connect with all of you and try to build community and help people. And this is an interesting point because you don't have to give up something that's inherently bad. I don't think social media is inherently bad. So it's not inherently bad, but she still chose to give it up because it is quite stimulating. So if you're listening to this and you're trying to decide what you can give up for that day or two, I'm having some trouble defining it. Let me know if you can think of a better definition in the comments. But some examples might be video games. It might be talking with certain people. It might be TV shows. It might be using your phone in general. Or I guess you do have the option of giving up something that you actually consider an addiction or a vice for those 1 or 2 days. If you consider yourself addicted to cigarettes or drinking, for example, you could choose to abstain for over a weekend or so. Some people do refer to this or practices similar to this as a dopamine detox. I hesitate to call it that, mostly because some people hear the buzzword detox and they shut off and they think, well, I don't want to hear anything more about this. This is pseudoscience. You can't detox from dopamine. You don't have to think of it that way, but I do think there are potential psychological benefits to doing something like this once a week. By the way, I don't mean to shoehorn this in, but I was thinking of this as I was planning the video and I want to be sure to include it. But if you are in my Discord and you are one of the very active members, shout out to you. You may want to consider giving up Discord as a thing you give up for a couple of days a week. I do that because I love all of you, but some of you, in my opinion, spend perhaps too much time on the Discord and in the server. It makes the server look good. Discord gives me green arrows. Our stats are going up. Activity is going up. But we don't need to do that at the cost of your own health. So as you're choosing what to give up, especially if it's something that's stressing you out, especially if it's something that you feel a little too bogged down in, and it's something that used to give you pleasure, that used to make you happy, but is now kind of stressing you out, you may want to consider backing off just a little bit for a couple of days. I will still be here. We will still be here when you get back. My goal is to build community, but I also want you to be happy. I still love you. The community will still be here for you when you get back. It's okay to take a couple of days off. By the way, here's the Discord. But yes, whether it's social media, Discord, even video games, these things aren't inherently bad. In fact, they can be used for good. However, I think sometimes we use this as a form of escape. When we have problems and we know that we have things that we want to work on to get to the life we want, we can use this as a form of escapism to distract ourselves from that. And ultimately, like I said before, in my opinion, we can't run from our problems forever, or at least we shouldn't. It's better long-term and healthier if we face them. And when we stop trying to distract ourselves all the time from them, I have noticed, at least for myself and for some others, that even if we don't actively try to think of solutions, when we're not distracting ourselves, our brain knows we want these things and we will start getting ideas to solve the problems that we have in our life. When we want to move on and do something else, we will start getting ideas. I think this is why some people who say when they put their mind to things, the universe gives them opportunities. It's not really anything magic. It's not really anything magic. It's you're setting your mind to something and you're opening yourself up to opportunities to receive that outcome. So I recommend giving up something that stimulates you and gives you pleasure at least once or twice a week. And as an added bonus side effect, you will probably enjoy that thing more when you are using it. So that's pretty much what I had to say for now. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope that was helpful. I want to remind some of you that I think life can be very beautiful. I know it has its hard times. I've been through some hard times, but life definitely has the potential for tremendous beauty. Studying literature, art, history, music, photography, fitness, exercise, calisthenics, all these things. There's a lot to the human experience that most of us will never get to experience because there's so much. And when we pursue this, it's really tremendously a beautiful, enjoyable thing that you can really harness your passion for and go all in on something that you really like and make a difference in the world and help others and yourself at the same time. I know it can seem hard if you're stuck. I know it can seem like you don't have motivation or inspiration. But if you do these things, I hope you can feel that inspiration and motivation again and start on the path that will bring you to the life you want. Thank you so much for watching and joining me for a cup of coffee. I am your brother Hampton from Hybrid Calisthenics. Have a beautiful day.